Are you one of the 15% that can overcome life's adversities? Let's find out right now on the Leadership Voice. Welcome to the Leadership Voice. I'm your host, Jay Barbuto. Today's show is about grit and overcoming life's adversities. Joining us today is Terry Giles. Terry is a Horatio Alger recipient that has transitioned in his career from being a high-profile defense attorney to owning several enterprises in the automobile, banking, medical research, technology, and hospitality industries. Please welcome good friend, great person, Terry Giles.
Hi, Jay. How you doing today?
Terry, it's so great to have you on the show today. You know, Terry, a lot of people don't really know much about the Horatio Alger Award. It's an amazing recognition. Congratulations, by the way. Could you share with our audience what the Horatio Alger recognition, what it is for?
Sure. Norman Vincent Peale, the famous minister who coined the phrase positive thinking, started the Horatio Alger Association in 1948 as sort of a tribute to what he believed could happen through positive thinking. And every year since 1948, they give the award to 10 Americans that have achieved great success by overcoming adversity in their life. Now, success can be determined monetarily. It can be determined by what one has achieved politically. It can be what one's achieved academically. I mean, we have Supreme Court justices, presidents, the heads of just about every major corporation in America that came up from nothing. So it's a great award. It's a great privilege. And I don't know anybody who's ever gotten the award that didn't wonder how in the world did I get this great award and get to participate in this great organization. I was lucky enough to get the award in 1994. So I've been a member now for 26 years, 27 years, and I've loved every minute of it.
So really you got it because of overcoming a lot of adversity, overcoming maybe going against the odds. Maybe the odds are stacked against you, and most honorees, the odds were probably stacked against them. Is that fair to say?
Absolutely. It's a unique organization because everybody in it basically came from nothing and have had the privilege to experience the American dream. And I've never met a group of people with less ego. It's amazing. These folks who have come from nothing have built it themselves. They all look back and are so grateful for mentors in their life, for good breaks that they've gotten in their life. They attribute so much of what they have to luck and perseverance, but they've not allowed it to impact their ego. I've never seen anybody in that organization fall subject to a giant ego that would kind of destroy some of the success that they've had.
Yeah, it's amazing the humility that sometimes we see in people that it would in many ways have many reasons not to be humble, but that humility stayed there.
And you know, Jay, it's now the largest need-based scholarship program in the United States, bigger than any other corporation, bigger than anything else. And it's the members wanting to give back and help kids in high school that are Horatio Alger stories to be able to get the education that they deserve. So the organization now is giving every year more than $30 million in scholarships to young people who are excelling, even though they've come through and experienced great adversity. They're going to be amazing American citizens, and we're helping them as best we can.
I think it's an incredible program. It's an incredible scholarship, but it's also a great honor to be recognized. So congratulations for doing your part, both in terms of your own achievements, but also in giving back and helping that organization thrive into the future.
Thanks, Jay.
You know, Terry, a lot of people talk about things like overcoming adversity or resiliency or grit. Could you talk about how in your life you have shown really all three of these things, but how have you shown so much grit in overcoming your own adversities?
Well, let me describe for you what grit looked like in my life. My dad came back from World War II, where he was in all of the island landings. And between landings, the truth is they didn't know if they'd live through the next one. So there was a lot of drinking on board those boats. And my dad had the alcohol gene. So when he came back and he met my mom and they got married, she was not aware of the fact that he really had some alcohol issues. Mom got pregnant with me when she was 17, had me when she was 18. And she talks about when she was pregnant, them not having a place to live, and they'd ride the bus all night long in St. Louis just so they had a place to be out of the cold. And eventually I was born and we settled in a small community in the Ozarks, in the Missouri side of the Ozark Mountains called Cuba, Missouri. It's a great little town of 1,000 people, but it was a little bit backward from the standpoint that it wasn't a big city and that kind of thing. Now, there were some amazing people there, and I had made some amazing friends and got a lot of mentoring when I was growing up in Cuba. But one of the things that it was missing were some of the niceties you might otherwise have. But unfortunately, because of the fact that Dad had this problem and would disappear for great periods of time, my mom really suffered financially, and we had to move a lot. So between first grade and 10th grade in high school, I moved 21 different times, going to 21 different schools during that 10-year period. And this was in an era when nobody really cared about bullies and that kind of thing. In fact, as a young boy growing up, your teachers, even my mom, said, "Hey, bullies are the reality of life. You're just going to have to deal with it." And always being the new kid, that created a lot of problems. Eventually, I realized that it hurt a little bit less if I could talk my way out of some of those fights. And quite honestly, I think my ability to speak, the ability to later go to college on a debate scholarship, to become a trial lawyer, to take my ability to deliver orally into the boardroom, those really all got developed when I was in 5th and 6th and 7th grade, and doing my best to talk my way out of as many fights as I possibly could.
That's amazing.
It was tough from a lot of standpoints, but I have to tell you, it made me have to take care of myself. There wasn't a lot I could rely on. We didn't have money, so I had to get jobs, whatever it was, taking care of yards, dishwasher, whatever it is I had to do if I was going to have any money at all. And certainly if I was going to have money to date as I got into high school, I had to have a job. And I knew when I went to college, I'd have to support myself through college. But the main thing that I had, above and beyond everything else, was I had a great mom, Jay. My mom was unbelievable. Even when we had nothing, when she would tuck me in at night, she would act like she could read my palm. Now I now know she had no ability to read palms, no knowledge about it at all, but she pretended that she did. And every night she'd read my palm and tell me how successful I was going to be and how much money I would have, and money would be no problem for me. And every night hearing that as a little boy from my mom, I believed it. And it's amazing what can happen in your life if you believe you can do something.
Wow, that's an incredible story, Terry. I've never heard you share that before, and that's really touching. But it also speaks to the importance of what happens in our minds and our thoughts and in our belief system. And so thank you for sharing that.
My pleasure.
So let's talk about your book. You recently came out with a Wall Street Journal, USA Today bestseller called 15%. Could you talk about what does 15%, what does that refer to in your book?
Well, my last set of cases, Jay, I represented 150 of the 800 victims in what was called the predator priest cases, That was the cases against the Catholic Church in California. There were 800 victims, and like I said, I represented 150 of them. And I had to do a psychological workup on that with my co-counsel with each of these clients. And in doing the psychological workup, I found something very interesting that the psychs just kept telling us. They said it's a very interesting thing when someone is abused, physically abused by an authority figure, a parent, policeman, a teacher, for sure, a priest. 85% of the time, their life is ruined. And it's ruined because they have a tendency to rebel against authority. And when you rebel against authority, you're going to have problems the rest of your life, problems with bosses, problems with spouses, problems with the police. And sure enough, that was true for 85% of our clients. But they said it's a very interesting thing. For some reason, 15% come through the adversity, and they're actually stronger than they would have been had they not gone through the adversity at all. Now, I was also chairman of the scholarship committee for Horatio Alger. And as I mentioned to you, that organization grew from its scholarship program fairly dramatically. And now we get 40 and 50,000 applications for 300 scholarships a year. And we have to decide, who do we give it to? And so, and one of the things we're concerned about is a lot of these kids have come up through rough times and they're having a hard time adapting to college, and we're giving scholarships. We want them to be able to use it. So how do we pick the folks that are really gonna survive the adversity they've gone through? And we pulled together a bunch of psychologists and psychiatrists. And when we asked them that question, they said it's real simple. You're looking for the 15%. Well, that really struck a tone with me because of the Catholic cases. And so I began to look at it. I began to evaluate, what is it? What are the ingredients that make the 15% the 15%? And I could, to some extent, look at my own life and the things that worked, the strategies that worked or didn't work for me. And I could begin to look and see how it was that this happened, that my life happened for me, but how others have come through adversity and actually are better off in the long run than if they hadn't gone through it at all. So that's what the book is about. And it's trying to determine, is it something that's built into a person's DNA? Is it just luck? Is it getting the right mentors? Or are there skill sets that you can have and utilize? And if so, then wouldn't it be great if we could teach these skill sets to others, so that we're not dealing with the 15% anymore. We're dealing with the 25% or the 40% or the 50%, or who knows? I mean, wouldn't the world be be a better place? And wouldn't we all be better off if those going through adversity could be stronger at the end and not have their lives ruined?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, even if you think about, if 15% is the average percentage of folks that are able to overcome life's adversities, just getting it up to 20% would make a phenomenal difference in our communities, in our societies. So it's amazing to me. Could you talk about what it takes to become those 15%?
You know, if I had to boil it down, in the book, I talk about the 3 C's, which is consciousness, communication, and conduct. I want to go back and explain this. I also talk about elements and skill sets that you can develop that will help you in that regard. But primarily, you have to know and you have to believe that you have everything you need to survive adversity right inside you. I call it your already always being. It's already there and it's always there. You just have to pull on it. Number 1, consciousness. To envision in your mind a better situation, a better you. Maybe for me, being a better husband, being a better boss, being a better listener, being better than I am at what I'm doing, whatever that might be. Secondly, communication. If this is going to be true, and if I'm going to make that picture of myself accurate, then I have to start speaking in every way possible as if it is already true. Now, here's the key to that, though. It's not just communication to others. Maybe the most important conversations you have in your life are the conversations you have in your head.
Yeah.
And you've got to speak to yourself as if that picture of you has already occurred. And then finally, your conduct. You have to align your conduct with what your conduct would look like if your picture of yourself were true. So align your consciousness on your goal. And then everything you say and do is in focus and in direction and is in connection with that view of yourself that you've created. And I say the universe cannot deny you. Now, there are skill sets that help to keep that in mind. Listen, I've been thinking about this my whole life, and I can't tell you how many times I'll be doing something. I'll be in a business. I'll go, why isn't it going the way I want it to? And then all of a sudden it'll hit me. What Terry, you say you want to be over here, but then everything you say and do is over here. No wonder there's no alignment. So even though I believe this stuff, and I've believed it my whole life, and I've seen it work for me over and over again, I have to remind myself every day of these things. Otherwise, I can fall subject to forgetting. It's amazing.
That's, staying aligned and making sure that our thoughts, our words, and our actions aren't ever in conflict, but are also in the right places. That's great advice for everyone. So Terry, let me ask one final piece of advice. What advice would you give somebody that's in the middle of a crisis? How would you help them get out of it or get through it?
Well, that's a really interesting question, Jay. I think a psychiatrist will tell you that there's a person who's really depressed. The worst thing you can do is tell them, well, get happy, don't be depressed anymore. Just get out of it, because they're depressed for a reason, and it's not as easy as that. So when a person is in crisis, the first thing I think, if somebody knows somebody in a crisis, is not to jump to the conclusion that whatever you're going to say is just going to pull them out of it right away. They have to get into the right state of mind to be able to do that. Reminding them of who they are, reminding them of the talents they have, reminding them that within themselves they have everything they need for life to be whatever they want it to be. Those are the ways to try to reach them. Now, once they begin to feel that way, now you can start to talk to them about smart risk-taking. Life really begins at the end of our comfort zone. If you just stay in what's comfortable, you're really not growing. You're really not experiencing all of life that you can have. So, but you got to get somebody in the right frame of mind before you're going to get them to jump outside their comfort zone. But once you can get them to understand that they have the ability within them to be whatever they want to be, now you can begin to work with them to have a vision of something bigger and better, to move them outside of their comfort zone and develop new comfort zones that expand their horizons, and begin to talk to them about some of the mechanisms one can use, underdog theories, and all the various things I know I talk about in the book that are things you can do to improve your chances of being successful in life. And when I use the term successful, I'm not just talking about financial. Again, I'm talking about being a successful friend, a successful parent, whatever it might be. So But you got to approach it slowly. You can't go right in and just think you're going to pop them out of it right away, because you're going to have a reverse reaction to what you're looking for.
No, and I love also that you're reminding us all when if we're ever around somebody that's going through crisis, to remind ourselves that there's a reason why they're feeling the way they're feeling, and that there's things that are happening that have put them where they are. So just contending with where they are might not actually be the solution, but thinking about how they came to that place.
Yes, that's it. That's exactly right.
So Terry, we do have a couple of questions from our audience. Let's take a moment and let's see what questions we have. Our first question comes from Christian Miller from Laguna Hills. Christian asks, who were your mentors and guides that influenced you in your career?
Well, that's a great question, by the way. There's been quite a few of them. One of the things I learned early on is it's really a good thing to ask for advice. Asking for advice, and I continue to do it today. I'm in my 70s. I've got a lot of different businesses, but if I get involved in something that is relatively new to me, calling somebody who I consider to be an expert in that and saying that I need their advice is not a problem. And it's amazing what people will do to help you out if you simply ask for that help. But probably the first mentor for me was, in fact, ironically, Norma Vincent Peale. My mom read the book Positive Thinking to me in 1956 when it first came out. That's the first book I remember, real book, that was read to me cover to cover by my mom. And I've been a fan of Norma Vincent Peale all of this time. Interestingly enough, when I got the Horatio Alger Award, I received a letter from him, which I have framed. I'm so proud of that letter. But before the next meeting where I could meet him, he passed away. I got to know his widow, Mrs. Peale, and she was terrific. But I always regret that I never got to meet Dr. Peale directly. When I became a lawyer, when I was in law school, for those of you in Orange County, you may remember these names. Matt Curlich and Mike McDonald were two of the best criminal defense lawyers in Orange County. And I wanted to come out of law school and be a criminal defense lawyer. And I had the luck to be a clerk for both of them. And they were incredible. Each were completely different personalities. Both were unbelievably successful. And I can't tell you how much I learned from them. And they really worked with me, and they were so kind. And I will always be grateful for that. When I got in the car business, I contacted who I thought was the number one person in the car business and talked to him about that. I've done the same thing in banking. When I decided to buy hotels in Europe, I contacted a guy who in Germany was called the King of Castles, who was one of the biggest real estate entrepreneurs, self-made men in Europe at the time, and asked him his advice. And he took me under his wing and gave me the best advice he could on buying and selling properties in Europe. So every step of the way, I've had mentors that have helped me out, and I've been very, very grateful. I feel very, very lucky to have known all of those people.
I think it's great hearing that you had good mentors, but what I'm also hearing is that you sought those mentors and that you sought the wisdom of those that you could learn from.
Absolutely. No question about it.
That's great. So our second question comes from Sean Hammers from Long Beach. Sean asks, why did you keep going when it got really tough? What kept you motivated?
Well, as a kid, we were really poor, and I hated being poor. I hated not having the right clothes, not being able to do the things that other kids were doing. And what keeps me going is the fear of failure. I didn't like it when I couldn't be who I thought I wanted to be. And it took some money to be able to do that to some extent. to be successful, to be able to employ other people, to be able to make life better for as many families as we have over my lifetime. I could only do that if I was willing to take risks and start businesses and be successful. And so when I'd run into a problem, and I ran into a bunch of them, I've had over 35 different companies. Not all of them were successful. Some failed. That's just the truth of the matter. But you know what? I learned more from the failures than I ever learned from the wins. Callie is my wife. I've told Callie a number of times, when I have too many successes in a row, I have a tendency to think I'm bulletproof. And that's when I'll take one to the heart. That's when I'll take a loss. It'll be the hardest. And I always have to remember when I'm going through failure and I'm going through the pain of that, I don't try to avoid the pain. I take the pain in. I go, okay, that's how this feels. I remember how this feels. This feels really bad. But then I let it go. I don't dwell there. I let it go and I move on. And I know that I'm going to be successful in the next thing I do. And I evaluate what went wrong. Sometimes when everything goes right for you, you have a tendency not to evaluate it as much as you can. But when it goes wrong, that's your chance to grow. That's your chance to actually learn something and remember it so it never bites you in the future.
So failing is only a real failure if you don't learn from it then.
Yeah, that's right. And to be honest with you, I've even started to look, I've always looked at my childhood, the adversity I had, as a positive, that it made me who I am. And I'm so grateful for all of that. And by the way, just so the audience knows, the last 20 years of my dad's life, he and I became great friends. And that's when he told me the story about the war. I didn't know that when I was growing up as a kid. Helped me to appreciate that. And before my dad died, we had 20 years of him being a very, very close friend of mine. I'm always appreciative of that. But failure to somebody else means that I wasn't successful and I was doing it. But if I've learned from it, if I'm taking away valuable life lessons, it's going to make me stronger in the future. It wasn't a failure at all. Maybe the win was learning the lesson.
Absolutely. No, and I think that's the right mindset also. That's the right perspective to have when we think about adversity, rather than just, oh, I failed, now I'm sad or I'm downtrodden, but rather, what can I take from this that will help me in the future? And it sounds like you've spent your life reflecting on the adversities that you've faced.
I tried to, that's for sure.
So we have one final question,
Sure.
And it comes from Claudia Jackson from Anaheim. Claudia asks about growth. She asks, what is your advice for people that find it difficult to find growth opportunities?
I had a law professor in law school, and he said something that I've carried with me all this time because it applies to a whole lot of areas. He was teaching constitutional law. And what he said was, all the time he talks to lawyers who have said they really regret that in all the cases they've handled, they never had the opportunity to handle any constitutional issues. Now, what's funny about that is that there is generally a constitutional issue in just about every single legal case that you get involved in. It's just that some lawyers didn't look deep enough or didn't understand that those constitutional issues were there. They might have even been handling it, didn't understand it or think of it as a constitutional issue. I would say the same thing about growth opportunities or opportunities to do something significant in life. They're out there. They're out there all the time. You just got to open your eyes to see them. Another example I use is, at least this has been true for me. All of a sudden, I'll learn a new word. I don't learn that many new words anymore, but back in the earlier days, I would learn a new word. And then all of a sudden, I would hear that word being used a whole bunch. And then it hit me, you know what? That word was being used all the time. I just didn't know what it meant. And therefore, I just brushed it aside. And life is like that. There are opportunities out there for everybody all the time. You gotta be aware of that, and you have to be in tune with looking for it. It might come in all sorts of disguises, but I guarantee you, if someone were to call me, tell me their life, where they are in life, what they're doing, and then tell me they don't see any growth opportunities, I could probably in about 20 minutes take them through and show them 10 or 15 potential opportunities given where they are and where their life is and what their interests are. So they just need some guidance.
Oh, absolutely. And I think that's a great perspective, because a lot of people will think, oh, I need to go find a growth opportunity, when really those growth opportunities are probably surrounding us, and they're embedded in almost every aspect of our lives.
Yeah, that's right.
Well, Terry, I want to thank you so much for being on our show today and sharing your wisdom, your story, your book as well, and answering our questions from the audience. It's been a great opportunity.
Jay, the pleasure has been all mine. Thank you so much. I always love talking to you.
Oh, terrific. Thank you, Terry. And I think that's about all the time we have for today's show. Today, we talked about grit and overcoming adversity. We had a special guest, Terry Giles, the author of 15%. Each of you, please tune in to all of our Leadership Voice episodes. Like, share, and subscribe. And join us each episode as we bring you relevant themes that can guide you in your leadership development journey. On behalf of the Center for Leadership, I'm Jay Barbuto. We'll see you next time right here on the Leadership Voice.